production environment. You can do the tweaks you want here, but it's only for the debugging processes. Editing PCF scripts is not the supported thing. Maybe in the future we'll get some methods to do some tweaks here in our Webpack, but at the moment it's not what's quite supported. But for the debugging process, it's quite handy if you add a source map here. So, okay, save the Webpack config file and initiate watch function once again. And now we'll see that the two files are generated every time we make a change. As you can see, now we have bundle.js file and bundle.js.map. If we collapse the not modules and check the out folder, as you can see, there is bundle.js.map file. If we open that file, it's a pretty clunky file, a lot of tags that it's also unreadable. That basically contains all our TypeScript files concatenated in one big file and the maps between our TypeScript and JavaScript. And there is the real magic of the fiddler. So we can inject that bundle.js.map file, which is not included in our solution, but we'll just include it when we need to debug. So simply you're not duplicating your files in the solution. You're not having doubled the size of your resources. You simply have that bundle.js map locally and you just inject it anytime you need to do a debugging session, deeper debugging on your controls on the real environment, especially when you're testing some data related issues on the production environment. It's really, really handy tool to have. Okay, let's go back to the filler. And now we have bundle.js file injected for us, but we will add a new rule too that will simply do everything we did with the bundle.js for the bundle.js.map file. We just point it to the bundle.js map, also located in the same folder as bundle.js. And after that, when we enabled those two things here, we can go to browser and again do hard reload just to make sure that we have everything we need, not cached versions, but the newest versions we have on our local machines. And if we go source, open file, and I will search this one, so GitHub service.ts. So if I search GitHub service.ts, we can see that there is a TypeScript file straight here. So if I, for example, put a breakpoint here when I initiate my GET request, okay, and let's start typing something into the text box. So when I hit D, I can debug my code, see what's the response of my GET request, and it's easier to manipulate the data inside and debug inside my TypeScript files rather than JavaScript, especially when they are minified on the production environment. And it's really great thing that you can debug through your TypeScript, and I personally don't recommend to debug through your JavaScript files, especially if you are using async await pattern as I'm using here, because you will practically see only gibberish code in your JavaScript bundle, and in TypeScript everything is perfectly readable and easy to debug. So if you can, always try to debug your controls through the TypeScript with the fiddler. It's once you set it up for once, and every time you need it, it will be a few seconds. You don't need to spend a lot of time to set up the fiddler and do the mapping of your files locally. It's just worth it. You want to have your fiddler running every time you are debugging your controls. And even if we are just in development phase, you use the fiddler, try your PCF on the real environment, because That way you will get the real world scenario, and you will see how your PCF will perform in host application. In debug harness, you just can't get all the scenarios right straight away. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation part once again. So now you know how to debug the controls with Fiddler. And the last thing here that I want to show is automating your PCF build process and release with GitHub Actions. Especially if you're releasing your PCFs on the PCF gallery, for example, and you constantly do some tweaks to make it better. You just want to remove the manual work that you don't want to do. I don't want to think about if I released a new version. I just want, when I commit the new commit at Git, I just want to release it as a new version. I want to publish managed and unmanaged solutions because people maybe want to include PCFs in their solutions or use it as managed. I don't know. They can have it there. So you can create a release based on triggers. So you can trigger it manually or on commit and pull request. You choose how you want to do it. But what's basically the point here, we have you covered in PCF generator, so the Yeoman tool, because you can generate GitHub action special for your project with a single click in Yeoman generator. So let's see how it's working in action, because it's pretty simple concept, but there are a lot of things in background that are doing the work. Okay, so demo part. Let's open this control that I had before. And if you go here on the top is .github/workflows build YAML. In build YAML, you have all the whole build process with a release part for your solution, but basically it reads your solution XML. So if we open the solution source XML, it reads the XML, gets the solution version, it creates both managed and unmanaged solution for us. It names it by a version and puts it in the release on our GitHub. And how can we add easily that GitHub action? So Control-Shift-P, Control-Shift-P, PCF. Okay, add GitHub action. There is a command called add GitHub action. Just press enter and the whole YAML file will be generated for you, especially for your control. You don't need to tweak it. It will just work. All you need to do is just upload it to your Git. So do the commit and it will be added to your Git repository. Okay, now when we have that on the Git repository, let's go to our Git. Okay, so I have a repository called Apps Bootcamp that has this control uploaded. It has the GitHub's workflow folder with the YAML file. When we open the actions and the build here, we can see that we have a build. It's called build because we called it in folder build.yaml, and if we call it some other name, it will show up here. And this is our workflow. As you can see, it has no runs. It's blank repository, fresh one. So now we can run this workflow manually by triggering the manual action, or we can push the commit and initiate the build process. But the commits will not initiate a release process until you add v tags so to your commits. For example, if I add a commit with a v1.3 tag, for example, it will initiate the release process, and it will, after the build, it will release my solution as managed and unmanaged solution to my Git releases. But this time I will just initiate it manually here. So do I want to release the solution? I just input true here, and I run the workflow. So the whole GitHub action part is developed by Nataraj. You know the Nataraj, the god of level up plugin. He helped me to scaffold that build process for the PCF and add it to my tool actually. So now when we initiate a build process, we can just click on that build, look at a fancy new UI for it, and click here to see how the build is going. So first thing, it installs the node, it gets the name of our solution, version of our solution, it installs all the dependency that our project needs. After that, when it's installed, it will run the npm build for us. After that, it will run the ms build command that will build the managed and unmanaged solution for us. And if everything succeeds, then that managed and unmanaged solution will be created as a release and uploaded to that release on our GitHub repositories. For example, if I go duplicate and I go back to my solution, I go to releases, and as you can see, there is no releases at the moment because our build is still running. Okay, now the MS build part finished for one solution. It's now running for another one. And if everything ends with success, our managed solution will be created, a managed solution and unmanaged solution will be created, we'll create a new release, and it will upload both zip files to the releases in our repository. And as I can see, everything went well here, and we can go to back to releases part, refresh it, and after that you can see the new version 1.2 releases created with the both zip files for our control are here. We can just grab the solution, upload it to environment, and we are good to go to use that control straight away in our environments all across the globe. Okay, so basically when you're releasing an open source tool, open source PCF, I highly recommend to use GitHub Actions. If they are open source, it's easy to expose those controls with releases. So we need to automate that releases. So we don't need to think if we created a release for the new feature that we added to our control. And with all the ALM fuss at the moment, I think it's a really good start, especially for the PCF, that it's like in taking the baby steps in ALM at the moment. Okay, I think that that's the last thing I wanted to show. Um, Thanks everyone for joining this session. I hope you learned something new. Maybe you saw some tools for the first time now, but I think that you will definitely use them if you are stick to PCF development in future. Uh, Thanks everybody for making this developer conference happen. As you can see, you can, if you're new with a PCF, there is a great book and a course that you can get discount with a promo code shown on the screen at the moment. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can check the articles on my blog and contact me there, or you can send me direct messages or questions on my Twitter account, Dynamics Ninja handle, and I will be happy to help you with the process that you're struggling with. So feel free to hit me up and fire your questions. So once again, thank you, and I hope we have some questions to answer in the chat window. I was not checking the chat window. I hope you, Danish, you have that covered.
Yes, I do. So I didn't answer any of those. I was leaving it up to you. So first question is from Davy, and his question is, do we need to only use this PCF tools essentially for simple PCF? Do you think the XRM Toolbox tool can be used to implement more complex PCF?
Of course, it can, because the XRM Toolbox tool just exposes the features you need in graphical interface. And I hope that, Danish, you have some new features that are great to see and to be as new addition in the PCF Builder soon. Am I right? I hope you'll
Yes,
show some your
yeah,
session.
there's a session after Dinah's session where I will be showcasing some of the new features in PCF Builder in for exam toolbox. So yeah, very exciting features.
Yeah,
And
really looking
and
for.
yeah, and again, as Ivan said, it's just exposing the CLI commands through either graphical user interface or through some scaffolding tools that Ivan has built himself. It's just the CLI part. The main meat of all the code components is all in your TypeScript files. You can use React, you can use all the other libraries out there, but that's where all your meat is, and you can go as complex as you want in that on that piece. CLI is just to help you build those components that can be deployed to Dataverse. So the next question is from Pota, and his question is, he's first of all, he's new to this, so he's asking a question. I noticed you very easily added an extra language to the control. Are these RESX part readily available as part of the standard PCF control, or did you configure those files?
It's a standard control for the PCF, of course, and it's included in the framework, but the template is like the standard resx file template. So I basically added it as an extension that will just copy the template and set the right language code ID to that and simply map it in your manifest. So all you need to do is open the resx files, input the, for example, property key into that resx file, and when you have that key into the resx files, I'm kind of lost now. Okay, so here, control display key here, and you just add the value that you want to translate here, and it will be translated to that value if the UI language is set to the language you have in the resx files. Is that answering your question? I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that I think so answers the question. The next question is from Mayank Kumar, and he's asking whether do we have to use Fiddler everywhere, or can we still use the Fiddler Classic or Fiddler 4.0 version?
Of course, you can use both versions. When I installed my new machine, I installed Fiddler everywhere. I was using the Fiddler Classic for a long time, but of course you can use both versions. It's no problem. But the Classic one has a lot of more features. I think that Fiddler everywhere is more focused to that redirect, so the autoresponder part. That's why I'm using Fiddler everywhere, but you can use the Classic one too.
Yeah. And then there's a question from Valentine, which I think is more of a forum question than a question to you, directed to you. It's off-topic question anyway. He's saying that maybe someone knows how can I create a PCF data grid which takes data from several fetch XMLs.
Yeah, that's maybe just
It's a
a web
forum question.
API manipulation.
Yeah. Yeah. So Valentin, if you want to get more support, there's a pro developer forum, and Diana is super user on that forum. And you if you post your questions on that forum, you can get quicker responses and appropriate responses that would help resolve your issue. So try that path out. And then there are a few feedbacks. Great session. This makes life good. Awesome. Great, packed with useful information. Simply awesome. Okay, there's another question from Devi. Can we also create release pipeline to deploy to target environment?
Of course, you can just initiate pack tools provided by the PowerUp CLI, and you can build a release pipeline with it, no problem, or you can build your PowerShell scripts to deploy it to the environment. It's up to you how can you make the release pipeline for deploying the actual PCF to the environment.
Yeah. Then Victor is asking if these slides are available somewhere.
Lights.
Slides, like the
Slides.
presentation slide.
Okay, I hope it will be uploaded somewhere. That's more up to you, I think. Will you upload somewhere, or?
Yeah, probably you can use LinkedIn SlideShare to share your slides out.
Okay, sure. Then I will just share it on my LinkedIn. No problem.
Okay. Then there is. Should you share the link to the? Okay, so Subhash is asking for the link to the forum. Diana, would you be kind enough to get that link for the forums?
Of course. Just a second.
And yeah, overall positive feedback. Any other questions for Ivan? And again, he will be here again with us in few hours in the Q&A panel. He's one of the panelists where you can ask him more questions about PCF. And if you want to learn what's coming, then we also have Microsoft engineering team from PCF also attend the Q&A session. So look out for that as well. And then I just posted the link to the forums, and that's the professional developers forum where we ask questions about not only just PCF, but also about custom API or building connectors or anything to do with anything to do with professional developer. And then there's another forum where you can ask citizen developer questions, and that's a different one. So there's a separation in the on the forums. Okay, any more questions?
I don't see any new ones popping up.
Well, if that's it, Ivan, again, it was great having you. It's always great to see you present and talk about PCF. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so if there are no more questions, we'll let Ivan go. And thank you again.
Thank you, guys, and see you in a few hours on the panel.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we'll have our next session coming up in 5 minutes. And that session is from our own Dinah Berkelbash. She's the organizer of this event as well. It's her first time organizing this event, and yeah, we can see her tense, but yeah, she's doing fine. Everyone can agree to that. She's doing absolutely fine.
You have to say that, right?
Oh no, you are. Trust me. If you were not, I would have told you. Offline, obviously, but yeah, I would have told you. Anyway, so yeah, she is here, and she is the queen of PCF, as what my friend Victor calls her. She's the queen of PCF. She is the super user in the community. So if you have any questions come up, if you have posted any questions, she will be the first one to answer it. I mean, I see her all the time, like all the questions are answered, Diana. I'm like, oh, how does she do that? But yeah, she's the super user on the community. If you have any questions again after these sessions, post it on the community, and then someone will, people like Diana would answer your questions. So like the fetch XML question that someone had, post it on the forum. And she has been doing PCF for quite a while, and very strong knowledge. And she's here to talk about continuation of PCF, how to use React hooks. So her session is called Hooked to PCF, and how to use React hook in PCF development. So Dinah, welcome. And whenever you're ready, we can start the session.
I will start sharing my screen. How about the recording? Do you have to start a new one or just let it go?
I'll have to start the new one. Yep. See, I'm not doing a good job.